There's so many of us that have not yet understood what is our own individual definition of success.
Yeah.
And being in a room, hearing other individuals kind of sharing what their individual definitions of success were shows how diverse that is.
Yeah.
You know, it's and it's okay to have different definitions, and it's okay that those IDOSs change over time as we are going through this career.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another Real Estate First Friday. My name is Matthew Hodge, Executive Vice President here at LPT Realty, joined by my co-EVP, which also stands for Executive Vice President, Luis Fermin.
What's up? Good morning.
How you doing, bro?
I am doing well.
Good.
Well, let me get more specific.
Yeah.
Because in the world of sports, it's a little shaky right now. So we are big Orlando Magic fans. We won game 1.
Yep.
Lost game 2.
Yeah.
We have game 3 tomorrow. So we'll see how that all pans out.
Uh-huh.
I'm a Mets fan, obviously.
Yeah.
We are creeping up. We were the worst team in the MLB. Now we have a 4-way tie for the second worst team in the MLB.
Okay.
So now we're not the worst team. So that got a little bit better.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, that's sports world.
Yeah, that is sports world. You know, and we'll just take a quick second to talk about this because the Orlando Magic, you know, it's very difficult to stay as an engaged fan with them because, like, you get your hopes up and then inevitably they always just do something really like, oh, we've never seen this before in the history of sports. Someone who can be up 30 points and then in the last quarter and then all of a sudden lose. And it's just a very emotional roller coaster. So I'm feeling a little tender. So guys, be easy on us. Be easy on us right now. But we've had a long week. It's been a great week. We had SpringCon here at the office. And so just so that you guys know, we are actually in LPT headquarters right now. So the Motivational Monday stage is all the way down the other side of the building. This is at that back left corner. And so this entire building was just full with agents. We did cap it at about 200 tickets, which we probably could maybe do a little bit more. But we did cap it at 200 tickets. And so, you know, we had the opportunity to hang out with 200 people here, which was really fantastic. And all the different learnings that we had over the course of the week was great. So today's episode is going to be, we're going to bring in David Lewis here in just a second, but we're going to kind of give you a recap of what the big takeaways were here at SpringCon, and then give you some insight as to what you should expect maybe from FallCon. So if you haven't come to an LPT conference or you're thinking about it, you know, we want to make sure that you understand how to extract and benefit the most from it. And so we had speakers that were talking about all different types of topics. We did things like developing your brand, developing your individual version of success. You guys hear us talk about that all the time, but there's a lot of people who haven't really thought about it. Like, hey, what is my ideal version of success? Like, it may not be something that you're accomplishing today. Likely it's not. I don't think for any of us, we're always kind of striving to that thing because once you get there, it kind of changes and turns into something else. But defining the target is super important. And then the other piece is that the branding, like how do you then put the marketing pieces in place around your branding that then starts to propel your business? And so we talked through all of those things on how to create the targets and then actionable items to go there. We talked through AI. We talked utilizing that at the appropriate level inside of your business. We talked about tons of different things. And so we're going to recap that today. But before I do, I'll turn it over to you, Lewis, to kind of give us your thoughts.
Yeah, for sure. So let's also do this in the chat. If anybody in the audience did attend SpringCon, let's go ahead and put in the chat any feedback, any good nuggets that you were able to capture from SpringCon. I think it'll be cool to kind of share that. But, you know, I guess first, whenever we're in community with our agents, it's such a special moment. You know, it's the atmosphere around the culture that has been built here at LPT Realty is truly something amazing and special. You know, as you're walking up and down the halls, you'll hear agents, you know, interacting with others, oftentimes in the same market, and just being vulnerable, sharing stories, sharing experiences. Like, it truly creates this dynamic where, you know, we're like one LPT heartbeat and we all want to see each other, you know, succeed and win. And we're coming from this abundance mentality. And we could say, I mean, we've, you know, seen a lot of other companies and a lot of other brokerages, and it's not that type of environment, you know. So it's really refreshing to see that because we're all here in the same business. We're feeling the same pain points. We're experiencing the same challenges. And, you know, we can all help each other grow and develop through those lenses. But yeah, I mean, the content was great, you know, going through it's funny because every time, no matter what conference we attend, which throughout the year we attend many conferences, like AI is a big theme.
Yeah.
every single time I sit through an AI presentation, I feel like I pick up something new.
Yeah.
Like it develops so quickly. Like
Yeah.
I'm always picking up something new. It's and one of the big quotes that came out of it is, AI is not going to extinct the agent. The agent who does not embrace it today will be the agent who will be extinct. So
That's
it's
right.
like just that
Yeah.
that quote resonated so well.
Yeah.
But talking through the IDOS and just seeing like there's so many of us that have not yet understood what is our own individual definition of success,
Yeah.
and being in a room hearing other individuals kind of sharing what their individual definitions of success were shows how diverse that is.
Yeah.
It's and it's okay to have different definitions, and it's okay that those IDOSs change over time as we are going through this career. So it's a very fun experience to kind of be a part of that. And branding was a massive subject matter as well that we discussed. And this concept of branding is not just your professional photo, your colors, your logo, which sometimes when we hear branding, we get caught up with that's it. That's what branding means.
Yeah.
But it's more than that. It's what is the story behind your brand?
Yeah.
And Chris Giannis, he did some presentations around branding. He had the quote like, branding's not, again, the logo, the color, etc. of what you've created. It's what is the story that people are telling when you're not in the room.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of hearing that high level conversation across the board was really cool.
Yeah. Super was. All right, we're going to bring in David Lewis, who is also here in attendance. David, good morning, brother. How are you?
What's up? What's up? You don't hear me okay?
Yes, we can. We certainly can. So good to see you again. You were here in town for a couple of days while we were here through SpringCon. And on the very last day, we had the opportunity to go share an espresso martini together, which was fantastic. It was fantastic. Yes. So real quick, your takeaways for SpringCon, kind of from your perspective, did you hear anything new that you hadn't previously heard? And then what do you think that some of the agent takeaways were?
I mean, it was so great. Campus has never looked better, like the fresh signage and like all the lab rooms being set up and pretty perfect, and seeing all the agents. I think, Robert had asked the question in the very beginning, like how many are here for the first time? And there was like 70% of the room had never been in the building before, which was awesome to see them experience it for the first time, because that building is kind of the heartbeat of the company when you think about it, with people coming to train, and it's just always packed with agents. Whenever we do something there, it's awesome. Man, Lewis already touched on it a little bit, but the Robert opening up, talking about IDOS, that's just a lot of people think that it's just like part of the identity of the company, in the sense of like, oh, you have options, and you have options to meet you where you are. But, taking it a step further and thinking about it a little bit deeper, just it's not just options for you, but it's really meeting you and your identity during those time points. And like, there's all these different seasons of your life as an agent. Like we've all known, like we know what it takes to be like a really busy agent. And then the next year, a life circumstance might happen and that might change, or you might decide to build a big team, and you just go in so many different directions that it's not just about options, but it's about your identity within those options, and having the tools and like a company that supports you during that time period is really, really big. So I loved the renewed focus on looking at that and not just going, oh, what option do I want as a company, but who am I this season, and how am I going to be not only benefited by compensation options, but how am I going to be benefited by certain tools, and really figuring out what is your definition of success right now, and the fact that you can be open to changing it in the future. It gives you kind of that freedom to acknowledge it, which I loved.
That was really powerful. And, even for me, as I think I try to update that pretty frequently on like, hey, what am I ultimately trying to accomplish? Am I moving towards that goal? Is the path that I'm on still really where I want to be, right? Is the target moved at all? And so like, I try to stay pretty conscious of that. But even through this series, through this time at SpringCon, some of the questions that they asked, I realized, I don't think I'm not fully aligned with what I truthfully believe is the ideal setup anymore. Like I'm not far off, but it really wasn't the way that the questions were asked. It really helped me understand, here's what I'm striving to accomplish. Here's what I'm striving to do. And some of the things I'll just give you for you to think about as you're home if you weren't here. So when we're developing like our brand, we'll start there, and then we'll parlay that into how that feeds into your definition of success. I was thinking, someone was saying, well, hey, I'm thinking about branding this way. And so we were asking some questions to lead them to kind of the answer. And so it was like, well, hey, what are you most passionate about? You know, like, do you like cars? Do you like to golf? Do you like to volunteer? Do you like to be, you know, whatever that is? And whatever you're passionate about, is there an opportunity for you to grow your business through that passion? And so, for example, I'll just say something like me. I'm an automobile enthusiast. I love cars, right? So if I could own a car or go to a car meet where there's the cars that I enjoy to be around and talk to those owners, you know, about our hobbies, and there's the overlap, but then they think about me when they have a real estate need, and then I become that guy to that community, like that fits that version of IDOS for me because I'm, you know, growing my business through my passion. But then two, like from a branding perspective, it's like, oh yeah, that's the car guy realtor or whatever, you know, like, and of course I'm breaking this down. I don't want to be car guy realtor, but I'm just giving you the very easy connecting the dots. And so someone else was saying like, hey, I am, you know, really involved with my son's football team. And, you know, I've been advertising there. And you know, I'm like, well, how do we take that further? How do we make that your thing? You know, what needs could you solve for that particular group? They are getting older. They are getting to a place where a lot of them are starting to graduate, and maybe there's going to be empty nesters, or they're going to have to help them find places for college. Would it make sense for you to then say, hey, let me help you develop a plan for your college student to maybe purchase a home? Or if you downsize and you want to, you know, utilize that as equity to then help them get started, you know, like, is that a problem that you think your group would want to solve? And she's like, yeah. I'm like, okay, so if you start doing those things, then you are then branding yourself to this group and you're becoming valuable to that group. And it's what you're already doing. It's what you're already passionate about. And so again, that gives you the thought process on like, okay, I can develop a brand from this thing. I can be the person who helps people relocate to X or helps people solve this particular need. You know, and that can come in a total different many ways, right? You could be into waterfront properties. You could be like, hey, I really enjoy helping first-time home buyers because I was that and I have a passion for doing that. It could be around veterinarians. It could be a transaction type. It could be a property type. It could be a passion of yours that's not connected to real estate that you help that community with their real estate needs. Like all that develops your brand, and then you can put things in place to support that and then grow the business. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, for sure. And this is such an important concept because we sometimes think it's like, hey, if we want to be a successful agent, we need to look like this.
Right.
And the reason why oftentimes we say that is because if we look down all the other industries, you know, whether it's medical or legal or other, you know, businesses that exist out there, it kind of is that, right? You know, there is kind of this one size fit glove that exists. And if you want to be successful in that world, you have to look that part or be that part. Well, we are in a business that's like purely entrepreneurship. Like you can literally build your successes off of your passions. And that's what makes this business very unique. And once you're able to get to that place, you can look at the business in a very different way. Because to Matt's point, if you have certain passions that fuel you and drive you, you can build a business around those types of passions that help fuel you. Other businesses and industries, you know, are very focused on this concept of a DISC score and personality traits and so forth. It's funny because we did a mastermind right after SpringCon concluded with a group of us, and we started challenging, well, what is an IDOS score? You know, why don't we look at it through that lens? Because we are in a business that has so many different ways of creating the income, creating the opportunities, interacting with the customers. We wear so many hats as an agent, and you can really drive your focuses on what is very much important for you versus that one size fit glove. And here at LPT, I mean, we want to encourage you guys to explore that. We want to be here as our brokerage to become your avatar versus forcing you to become our avatar. Like that was when we were building this inherently, that was one of the biggest things that we were wanting to solve for in the industry, because as we saw the different, you know, brokerages that predated us, it was always this concept of agents being forced to become the avatar of the brokerage. Like if I'm going to find successes in this brokerage, I need to look like this, you know, and it very much was legacy industries and other industries that kind of carried that notion. And we set out and said, we want to break that. Yeah. You know, we don't want you to be forced to look like us. Mm-hmm. We want to look like you.
That's right.
So how do we create this diversified menu item of opportunity that allows you to extract what's most important for you at any given time to help you achieve that IDOS?
Yeah, that's right. So, you know, one thing to think about too is and just if you're new to Real Estate First Friday, or LPT, which is very probable. IDOS stands for Individual Definition of Success. So when you hear Luis say IDOS, that's what he's saying, the acronym for Individual Definition of Success, and how that can look and vary from person to person. But so let's kind of like put the two pieces together. Let's put branding and IDOS, Individual Definition of Success, together to understand how those two pieces fit. So let's say in this example that I gave around the car, I'm an automobile enthusiast. I like going to car shows. I like fast cars. I like these things. So if I can utilize that as a place to grow my business, because I'm there for my passion anyways, and that group starts to think about me, and that spins a financial benefit for me. And then you then utilize that to then go purchase the car that I want. And so now I'm going back to that place with my car, that's spinning the wheel. Like, does that start to fit your definition of success? Like, hey, I'm living the life that I want. I'm affording the things that I'm passionate about. I'm getting business from the group of people who I'm passionate about the things with. Does that work, right? Like if you're really into golf and you went to hang out at the golf course and that was prospecting for you while you are, playing golf or at the country club, like, would that fit your definition of success? If you're really into outdoor adventures, maybe you're into hiking and stuff like that. If there's a community or a trail or a group of people who volunteer, like, and you could get business from that group of people, would that fit your definition of success? And so that's what you really have to think about it, because once you start to define that, then that becomes your brand. And then the advertising that you do and the efforts that you put in place support that thing, right? So then let's say in this example that does work for me. And then so now there's a car show and I can say, hey, I want to sponsor this car show. And, I'm going to take it a step further. Now I'm going to put money towards being visible to this group of people or whatever that may look like for you. But again, one builds on top of the other. And so if you're not thinking about what your definition of success is, it's going to be very difficult to find your authentic brand, or you may even have a brand, but it may not be really, fulfilling your definition of success. So really think about those two different things, because one parlays into the other. And then once you kind of have that full map, it starts to make visible the actions and the things that you need to hit the target, right? Like, I want business from this group of people. Here's the advertisement. Here's how I'm going to use LPT tools. Here's how I'm going to use these masterminds. Here's how I'm going to, accomplish that goal. David Lewis, what do you think?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of truth to all that. I think it's really important that to understand who you are, to understand what you're going to do. You see a lot of times, like, for example, like you look at luxury, people who want to get into luxuries, or like maybe you're working with mostly buyers and you want to do more listings. We have these goals a lot of times as agents, but our actions don't match the goals. But you can't really know what you should be doing until you've identified, okay, here's who I am in the season of my life. Here's my individual definition of success, or IDOS. And then what's my brand going to be? All right, great brand. I'm going to be known as the guy who sells houses for the most money. Well, are you doing listing related activities? Are you using listing related tools, right? Are you getting a box and unpacking the box? Like all of these things, but it all starts with, as you guys mentioned, knowing who you are in this season of your life, and then making sure that your actions, whether it be from a marketing perspective or like an on the ground, boots on the ground action perspective, actually meet that brand and that identity. And it all starts with awareness of who you are and who you want to be. And then you can take a hard look at what you're doing to be there, like you guys were talking about.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And afterwards, Shannon Bagadonis, who's also here, and she sent an email afterwards with kind of her takeaways and what she was doing for her team to help them understand how to kind of think through this process to define these things. It was really impactful. So if you are interested and reach out to her, she did a really amazing job. And again, it was just some thought-provoking questions and a way to organize the thought so that you can lead yourself to understand what it is that you're ultimately trying to accomplish in the business you're trying to build. Now, okay, so let's think. That is a very top level thing, right? There's a lot that goes into that. We're giving you high level overview of the starting points of, hey, designing a life that makes most sense for you and a business that you want, which is unique to entrepreneurship because, there's a lot of times that you are in, say, corporate America where you don't have that autonomy to build it that way. And maybe you're lucky enough to be in a career that you're really passionate about. But a lot of times it's not like that, right? Like a lot of times that you go to college because you think you want to do something, or you kind of design your life one way, and then you end up in a job that's really completely unrelated. Well, with real estate and entrepreneurship, particularly with the flexibility in real estate, it really gives you the ability to overlap anything, like whether you're, I don't know, you want to rescue pets, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Or you're an equestrian child, like my daughter. Like there's, no matter how you look at it, there's a way to serve that group. And I think it's so special. So really spend the time to think about your definition of success, how your branding then aligns to that, and then what tools we have that can then support that. Ask other agents what they're doing around businesses that you appreciate or that you would say, hey, that would make sense for my passions, and really kind of reach out and start those things there. But I kind of want to go to the next piece of that, which is the introduction of AI and how people are then utilizing, once you've got this first side defined, how are you utilizing AI to then start the goal? And so let's say you've figured out your definition of success, you know the target, you know what your branding should look like, or maybe you're going to use AI to give you some ideas. And so then now you are starting to implement this new process of trying to build that. AI can do a lot of things to help create clarity and take some of the muck work out of that journey, that process, and building the business. Now, what we see is people over leverage AI and they start to replace the pieces that would not make sense, right? Like your highest and best use of your time, your most influential time with someone is when you get face to face with them, whether that's via Zoom or in person, even better, and you can physically hand them something. That's your best. So AI and everything that you do should support your ability to do that, but not replace it, right? Like not replacing the conversations with people. Yes, filter people down so you're having real conversations, but not replace it. Some people don't like to prospect. Like there's not really a whole lot you can do to get around that. You can supplement some of those things, but at the end of the day, the whole goal of using AI is to point you to a place where you're having a conversation with someone. And that could be like, hey, I need you to help me develop a social media strategy. I need you to help me develop a script. When I'm talking to people, what's the best way to interface with them? I need you to help me develop a cadence of emails and how frequently I should, like you can utilize it for all those things, but you can't utilize it to replace that human connection. Mm-hmm. And so Luis, when you were talking earlier, is saying, hey, AI is there to supplement the experience or help you create a better experience or help you, be more of an expert, but it's not there to replace you. Mm-hmm. What were some of your takeaways?
Yeah. There? So it's like at the very root is AI is not there to replace your ability to build relationships with others, right? Because we are in a relationship-based business. At the very root, you cannot conduct this business in real estate unless a relationship is built.
Correct.
And one of the biggest risks becomes, are we going to lean on AI to build the relationship for us?
Right.
And you can't do that. It has to support your efforts to be able to go out there and build those relationships. And it's to your point, like there's so many things that AI can do to help you build those relationships. Like, can it help you create that relationship building campaign that you can then put your splash and your flavor and your branding inside of that campaign? When we were talking about branding, we talked about the big 3C pillars of branding, clarity, consistency, and connection. Can you lean on AI to help you build that clarity, consistency, and connection? Yes, AI can help you do that very conveniently, but it's still you building that relationship. Right. Are you getting ready to interact with a customer? Are you stumped because you can't think of thought-provoking conversation points? Well, you can go through a dialogue with AI and it can help you spark those thought-provoking conversation points that you can then go to your customer and, have those dialogues and so forth with them. So you use it as a means to support the efforts for the relationship building that you need to do. And that's where you are going to be able to excel that much quicker, by leaning on it, because the brains of AI is freaking intelligent. I mean, that's why it's called AI, right?
Yeah.
It's intelligent. Like it thinks through angles that you're not thinking through.
Right.
So, being able to lean on that and acquire those nuggets sometimes from AI to then take to the personal interaction is truly amazing.
Yeah, that's right. David, what were your takeaways from the AI side?
I think it's more of an extension of everything that we've been talking about, starting with an IDOS and moving to your brand and then figuring out, okay, great. How do I not replace anything of this me and core me with AI, but how do I use it as an extension, an accelerator for my business? How do I use it to do things more efficiently and effectively? And I think people do get lost a little bit in the process and they kind of let AI take over, but it should be an extension of you, right? It should be something that accelerates your vision, your brand, your language. And to y'all's point, you can never, ever replace the one-on-one conversations, but it makes a really great tool to create more opportunities for those one-on-one conversations. So use it in the ways that doesn't inauthentically replace you, but in a way that sets you up for more conversations. Like, for example, like if you were going to craft a message of people that you barely know or haven't met yet to try to get them into a funnel for more authentic one-on-one conversations, it's a really good use. But if you are reaching out to your past clients, I don't know that I would use AI to craft that message. I might use it to review my message and make slight changes, but I don't think I would go, hey, whatever AI tool I'm using, please craft a message to my past clients, because you really want that to be authentically you. So use it to accent, accelerate, but don't use it to replace those core pieces of the business like we talked about.
I think that's a perfect example of it, right? Because like if you send an email that's supposed to be personal, now if it's a market update, maybe they don't really care, right? But if you're trying to send a personal message to your sphere, they know you. Likely they are going to understand like how you speak. They're like, nah, that's not really like, and it's going to feel inauthentic. And so then you're utilizing AI in a way that is not going to, foster the relationship. And so it's working against you. Now, using AI in that example to say, hey, I'd like to send a message to my sphere this time of year. What are some of the topics you think that I should bring up, and allow it to guide you in that conversation? And then again, you're going to put your own spin on it, and then maybe you can have it polish it. Then it's you. And then that is supporting that more organic and that real authentic relationship, that those pieces. But certainly don't use it to just say, hey, I don't have enough time, so just do this, I'm going to send it out. And then people start to feel like you're like they're just marketing to them.
Yeah, we can never lose sight that this is a very emotional transaction for the customers in which we are serving. Like even though we're in the grunt, we're dealing with files are maybe blowing up and things are happening, like we have to stay rooted that this is very emotional for each and every consumer that we represent. Like remember, this is important for them. This is where oftentimes their children are going to take their first steps. They're going to say their first words. They're building the greatest memories that they have in their livelihoods within the walls of the transaction that we help them purchase, the experiences, the parties and the events. Like this is the memories that the consumers are building, and there's a lot of emotion that comes with it. And we always have to keep that emotional connection with our consumers, and we cannot come off being robotic. That is a risk that you face. If you over leverage AI, are we losing our organic self in those communications when we're trying to build those relationships? We have to make sure that the customer still, again, is being drawn to us from the place of emotion, and we're not a robot spitting back the data to them, because that's not what they want. Right. If they wanted them, then they're just going to go to AI, and that's not going to be the relationship of the future.
Yeah, that's right. That is absolutely right. Okay, guys, well, we'll go ahead and leave it here. I want to just leave you with this thought and give you a quick preview of what maybe you can expect from future conferences, at least in the short term, and certainly FallCon. So that there's the multiple certifications. One of them is going to be around leveraging AIs in your business in the appropriate way that actually moves it forward, doesn't replace or hit any of the tripwires that we've talked through. Two, one of the things that we have been throwing around is, how do we develop that individual definition of success? Like, how do you build a business model around that? Like, many of us are likely running businesses that don't necessarily fit that. So how do we slowly start to put pieces in place so that it does match it, so that your branding, your IDOS, the tools that you're doing, it is all working towards one target, which is the life that you ultimately are trying to design and live. And so we're going to go through some of those exercises. And I heard Robert mention that he was thinking about actually making that a certification or a portion of FallCon on an in-depth level. Not just like, hey, think about this. Like, hey, let's start to put some business pieces together. Let's all kind of define this. Let's do a little bit of homework here. But let's start talking about these supporting pieces. And let's start building this plan. And it will be universal enough that you can apply it to your own life and what you're trying to accomplish. But we're going to give you the roadmap on how to do that. And so it's going to be super exciting. So we hope we have an opportunity to see you again in person at FallCon, which is in October of this year. Whereas this was limited to 200 seats, this will be open to thousands of agents. And we already know we've already sold over 1,000 tickets for this. So it's going to be a great in-person opportunity for you to connect with your fellow agents, be in community, of course, with them, and then, of course, have an opportunity to see us in person as well, too, and S-Connect, which we always very much appreciate. So thank you, David Lewis, for your time today. We really appreciate your recaps and those nuggets that you sent there, Lewis, my co-EVP, as always. Appreciate your insights there. We will see you on this Motivational Monday. We will actually be flying to Texas this Sunday. And so we will actually be doing, by the way, Dave, you got to go to Texas Monday. I don't know if we told you.
Learned it live and in person.
Yeah,
on Real
live
Estate
and in
First
person.
Friday.
Yeah, it's Friday, but you're going to be in Texas Monday. So we will see you for a live motivational Monday from Austin, Texas, this Monday. And Dave will be producing us from behind the scenes, who likely is is going to be giving me some sharp words after Real Estate First Friday here. But we appreciate you guys. Have a blessed and prosperous weekend, and we'll see you Monday.